Hey everybody, how you doing? I'm Pavs, the Rising VTuber and artist, and today we are going to be working on... Please give me a moment, I'm trying to find the Clip Studio Paint source. There we go! God, last time we were messing around a lot in Blender and the Clip Studio Paint 3D asset thing, and well, today we will hopefully be doing less of that. So, as you can see, I've already gotten the grenades that we made last time into Clip Studio Paint. We are going to be using these now to kind of just make our lives easier and avoid having to draw like 50 figure out the angles ourselves, basically. No, these are a big help. I cannot emphasize enough how useful having basic 3D models of your props can be. Like, genuinely, I know learning Blender is like pulling teeth, but if you have the opportunity and you need something custom made, I do recommend trying to do it within the best of your abilities. Okay. So I think the thing to do... Yeah, I think it's best to just dive right into it. Because I think I think I can... Hang on. This is supposed to be like a grenade bandolier, right? So I'm going to just start doing that. I'm going to create that. And I'm realizing now that I'm not actually using a black pen. That's like some kind of deep purplish color. But thankfully we recovered just in time. But yeah, the only thing that I reckon will not be fun about this is actually like drawing. Why are you purple again? Why in God's name are you purple again? But yeah, no. The flip side of like suddenly having a 3D object for instead of the just freehanding everything is that it takes a while to get used to, because you're used to be able to you used to have like shorthands, right? I used to like think of the grenade in like certain dimensions and terms, and so the 3D model obviously cannot perfectly capture those ideals. So we're gonna be we are gonna have to do a little bit of freeballing. I really got to look up what freeballing means these days, because I feel like it's something that means a thing that I don't mean it to mean, but it actually means that. Sometimes I don't know if it's because English technically isn't my first language. I mean, it might as well be, but like, I don't know if it's because of that or because I just jump to assumptions a little bit too quickly. But sometimes I take certain words to mean things that they don't actually mean, but just because of the context and the kind of tone that they use, I assume they mean something that they don't actually mean. It's not a great habit, but I'm trying to break it. But like, at the same time, it leads to me using funny words in situations where it's inappropriate. But yeah, let's see, we got the handles here. We don't need to do too much work on the handles, I think. They'll primarily speak for themselves. Okay, and over here. This really is so much easier than just trying to brain it out myself. I could... do you ever like have something happen to you, right? Something like you just actually it doesn't happen to you. More like it narrowly doesn't happen to you, right? Like you realize that it could have very easily happened to you, so much that like you see a vision of yourself enduring that. I don't know if that's very hashtag relatable at all. I feel like at least a few people must be able to do it. I don't know. Maybe if you have like a hard time imagining things, it might not be possible. But sometimes I have like experiences where I am so close to being cooked that I can practically see it in my mind's eye. Let's see. Oh yeah, I sent the Yakuza Zero suit to the dry cleaners today, which is why I'm not currently wearing it. Yeah, no. As it turns out, hooligan blood is a lot more difficult to clean out from a white suit than you might think. Like it already sounds hard, but like I saw them like wheel out like a full tub full of lye or something. They were getting like those beetles that can like eat human flesh. Actually, I might not have actually been in a dry cleaners. I think I was at like a hardware store or something. In any case, they took my suit and they said that I can come back to pick it up in like 3 days. So that's gonna be interesting. Speaking of appointments I need to make, actually, I should probably try to schedule myself a haircut. Now, I know what you're thinking, but Paps, you don't have any hair. Well, sometimes I like to feel included. All right, I go to a barbershop and I tell them to just like click the scissors around my head a little every 3 months or so, and they oblige me because rice money spends is good anywhere else. Let's see. Okay, that's gonna go in like this. I'm not so too worried about the inner circle just yet because I can just kind of make a ellipse shape with the shape tools and be done with that. Ditto for the firing for the pin here. I can just make a black line and people will know what that is. You can attach one of those bad boys to anything and it'll look like a grenade. It helps if it actually is grenade shaped, like a pineapple with a grenade fuse. Brother, you just know that thing is gonna blast to smithereens. I remember seeing an account that posts like translated doujins. They posted one of a lady that found like this trend apparently that's being done, where you get a bunch of like nice paper cards and then you stick them on top of a firecracker. You set off the firecracker and it creates like a sort of cool looking confetti. And she had to go like 3 times before she finally got it right, I think. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that one. That one feels like it's just a lot of litter. Now they're using biodegradable paper. I mean, most paper is biodegradable by virtue of it being, you know, tree, but not all biodegradability is created equal. You you look at me and you look at Samoa Joe and you can see that statement is not true. God. Okay, before I draw any more of this, I need to hang on. I need to draw more of the bandolier. Okay. Then over here. Okay, like this. No. Hang on. Hmm. Okay, and then hang on, we need to move this around a little bit. Right now it's creating a weird tangent with the little nub there that I added. Why did I add that, by the way? Right, because it was part of like the original Discus Hand Granada. German can be is generally speaking. You know how like there was like that old meme way back in the day where like people were like everything in German sounds like it's threatening. Now that is, based on my experience, kind of true. The only instance that I can think of where it isn't true is that one meme of like the little German kid being like, I can drink cola and play Fortnite, yippee! You know that one? That's I'm so grateful that video exists because that kid brought so much unambiguous joy to the world. Also, I feel like I've kind of lost the plot a little bit with this grenade here, with this part of the bandolier. Let me take a few steps back. Okay. I'll add this thing here and then this other one here. And add this like this, and this can be a kind of like pinching line. We can put this here. Then that flips over backwards like that. And then this one's going to kind of transverse like this. But not too much because then it's going to look odd how much distance is between the grenades. Let me retry this. Okay. This is going to kind of go in like this. Bring this over here. No, wait, hang on. Okay, I think the better thing to do might be to like work backwards here. Yo, wait, I realized something just now. I can add like a little clip to the back of these to explain why they can hang on to belts and everything. Oh, I am so smart. That would also explain why they were just able to kind of like hang on to that dude's belt. I thought about doing a bit where like the belts on the goons were magnetized, but this feels much less bullshit. Like, you know, there's this thing, right? Like, you excuse a certain degree of nonsense if the end result is that it looks cool, right? But then there's like some instances where like your suspension of disbelief has been stretched so thin where you're like, all right, bud, yeah, sure, right? Like in Final Fantasy VII, right? Like that was how that one character, Cloud, is noted to like be able to carry around a sword despite it being like bigger than himself. He can just carry it on his back and just like plaster it there. And it's because apparently he has magnets that keep it in place. And you look at the sword, it's like the size of a refrigerator, and you're like, all right, sure, whatever. Right? Like, you don't buy it, basically. Also, I'm going to add like a little belt loop here. How do you tie a bandolier together anyway? Hang on. Bandolier. Right, I'm going to Google bandolier. 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 Okay, no, it is like a belt buckle. Power of the heart. That's true. You do just have to. You know what? You can wear a bandolier any old which way you want, and the good Lord will provide. Oh, power of the heart holds the sword up. God, that would be really funny as well, because like you start Final Fantasy VII and the guy's like the least happy dude ever. He's just trying so hard to be a dickhead. That did always I always did find that super funny in that Final Fantasy VII. Cloud is like genuinely like he is like fundamentally somebody who wants to help other people, but like he's trying to be very cool and broody. So every single time he's like, I guess I'll help you. While on the inside he's like vibrating and like struggling to like not help the person up immediately. I there was this tweet I saw recently that of a text conversation between two people where person A says to person B, "You are ruining my tough guy image," and person B just answers back like, "Who's my cute little kitty?" And person A is like, "Me." That's literally how like Final Fantasy VII is to me. I really should finish that game one of these days. On the other hand, I've lived for the past 24 years without finishing it, so I doubt it's that important, right? But you know, sometimes you just don't explain it, right? And sometimes that can be the right way to do it. But in a lot of cases, there are a few cases where like trying to explain why something works the way it does just feels a little bit of a reach. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, you know? Your job as a designer, first and foremost, is to make sure that whatever you're making looks cool. Whether people whine about it later is a problem for the future. Okay. And then we just close that out. Perfect. Okay, now we're gonna draw the rest of these grenades because now we know what is showing and what isn't. Okay, then this will kind of go in like this. I can just add a little bit of a curve here. God. I realized the other day, like last week, right? Last week was February 1st, which is Hourly Comics Day. And the first comic that I posted that morning was one of me making a very simple breakfast where I just put some instant oats in a jar of cold water and then started eating. And apparently that was a controversial decision. Little by little, I start to realize that my culinary decisions are not normal. This has happened before as well, where people are like, why are you cooking that? Some of it is just like genuine, good natured. I didn't know that this was something you didn't do, right? Like that time I tried to cook bologna in an air fryer, right? That didn't work out, but that's fine. I didn't. That was just like me not knowing what bologna was, what its properties were. They sure are choices. Oh man. But yeah, and so I'm left. Sometimes I'm left to wonder if like the ideas that I have are natural or unnatural. So to give an example, on Saturday, I left some meat to thaw. Right? No, not Saturday. Sunday. Sunday. It's only been 3 days. On Sunday, I left some meat to thaw in the refrigerator, and I was planning to make some stew with it. But unfortunately, I've been working overtime for the past 4 days, so I never really got the energy to like set that up. So I decided that before I took any more risks with the meat, I would just like cook it into a bunch of tiny kebabs, which is fine. That they turned out great. I threw a little salt on them. I cooked them up on the George Foreman. They were unproblematic to be quite frank. Pretty tasty too. But then now I'm also left with a bag full of diced onions, which I was also going to add to the stew. That's also been defrosted. And I'm kind of wondering what to do with all that. I was thinking about making some hot dogs, but the problem is that that bag has now been out for at least 4 days. And I'm a little worried about the status of the onions, the state of the vegetables within. So I'll probably not take the risk with those. Onions are such a wonderful plant. They go with everything. They don't demand much in terms of growth conditions. They make you cry. They do. What can't they do? I'm gonna put this a little bit higher up just because I. No, hang on. Let me let me exaggerate the shape of it a little bit more. Redraw vector line width. And let's just bring that in. Potato, onion, garlic, the three superfoods. True. Yeah, in my family we have ajo, pimienta, cebolla, pepper, onion, and garlic. Those were like your homies. Those were your friends. Whenever we went to the supermarket, my mom was like, "Okay, Juanito, okay, Pablo, ajo, pimienta, cebolla, okay, okay." And I would go get those things. I miss. Is it weird that I miss supermarket shopping with people? I miss like going to the supermarket together with like a few people and just like cooperating to get everything into the cart as fast as we can, as efficiently as we can. Perhaps not as fast, but definitely efficiently. There's a difference between fast and efficient, which is something that I feel is not sufficiently appreciated these days. Like, you can be fast without being efficient, right? Like, if you have a guy like plowing a mountain to make a hole in it at like triple speed, it's a bonding experience, exactly. Yeah, like if you have a guy plowing through a mountain with his bare hands at like 500 times speed, he still technically gets done fast, but it wouldn't be any more efficient than like using an excavator, right? Okay, then expand this. I'm gonna redraw the vector line with a little bit here, just because it's gonna bug me if it looks a little bit too unnatural. There we go. Okay, then. Could I get away with just making the backs of these things flat instead of having also a little like thing like this? I I kind of want to add the thing. I do, even if it will like add some complexity to whatever I'm making. I do want to give them a back half because I feel like that just looks cooler. Sometimes you have to grind for your principles. Okay, add it like this, add it like this. Take it down like this. No, wait, hang on. Something about this doesn't seem right. Okay, this is almost perfect. I just need to make this part here a little bit taller. There we go. Let's redraw that line width. And it's a good look. It's a good thing we don't also get a good look at the jetpack from this angle because otherwise I might be cooked. Okay, we'll take these off. Actually, before we do that, let's just make the inner ring here. Please copy and paste that. Thank you. You know what's an evil keyboard key that I don't think enough people discuss? Scroll lock. I've learned to be aware of it in my time using Excel, right? And it kind of sucks, right? Because like normally when you have an Excel document, right, you can use Control plus the scroll wheel to go sideways. Or no, wait. Right. It's a key. It's like the actual up. It's like the actual directional keys. You can use the directional keys to go from cell to cell, right? But when you've activated scroll lock, it doesn't let you do that. It literally like moves the page that you're on, the sheet that you're on, like you're scrolling. And it's very inconvenient because sometimes you just want to input like data in like the next cell, but it's not letting you. It's just moving you around, and you don't know what's happening. And it turns out that it it kind of sucks to activate and deactivate too, because like I never in my life have I activated scroll lock consciously with my keyboard. It just kind of happens when I'm like fat fingering some keys. And so whenever that happens, I have to kind of like groan and I have to pull up the on-screen keyboard just so I can just so I can deactivate it through there. Oh Lord. On the bright side, I did my first VLOOKUP at work today, which is kind of a cool experience. Excel formulas, Excel functions are one of those things where like if you work at an office job, you get excited about them. If you don't, you're like, okay, sure. Well, I guess not even an office job. I guess also like anything that's like data analytics, right? Okay, let's add this, then this. Perfect. Okay, we'll add a little bit of a curve right here. We could probably use an ellipse for this. Okay, lower the size of that, and then line redraw. And then I get to draw like 3 more of these suckers. The good news is that these take up like what? I'm gonna say a solid 5% of the line real estate in the page. And then I basically never have to draw them again until like, what, page Wait, no, I have to draw these like a lot of the time. Fuck. Well, whatever, it'll look pretty cool. Okay, then we gotta do the ones on this side. Oh, we don't need to worry about the... Well, no, actually we would need to worry about the pin here. I keep almost calling it a firing pin. That's not a thing that grenades have, I don't think. I think it's a fuse. The part that you pull out is called a pin, but it's attached to the fuse. So it's not really a firing pin, it's a fusing pin. I don't know. I think people understand what I mean regardless, so it's not really that much of a problem, but it's bugging me that I'm not saying it correctly. I used to be one of those guys that always corrected other people's grammar. Now I don't mind it as much, but I do try to correct my own grammar as much as possible because otherwise it's bugging me. The good news is that like I also didn't get a whole lot of chances to be the grammar guy because I was a second English speaker in a room full of native English speakers, so it was a little bit of a double-edged sword. On the one hand, if I didn't get many chances to be the grammar guy, but on the other hand, when I did, it was an absolutely fucking devastating blow. Like you're gonna sit there and speak English worse than a dude who's been learning it for like 2 years only? Cringe. Whatever. As long as the meaning is conveyed, it doesn't really matter anymore. I was about to say that we should start inventing words again like Shakespeare did, but I realize that now that is a thing that we do, basically. Like, that still very much is a thing that hasn't stopped happening. The word in English that pisses me off the most is chuffed. Like, depending on the context, it can either mean pleased and, like, happy, or it can mean, like, angry and displeased. Right? And that's because it's been used sarcastically both ways so frequently by the British, because it's always the fucking British. No, I'm kidding. In any case, it's been used sarcastically for both meanings so often that now it just means both things at the same time. And that's terrible. Learning English is kind of like a divine punishment, I think. Having to know English is like the price you pay for being able to consume things in English. You know, it's also pretty great sometimes being a second language English speaker, because sometimes when somebody says something really bad, I can just hit them with a "Wow, I wish I hadn't learned English," and then go about with my day. Like that's a strong put down that you can't get if you're an English, if you're a first language English speaker. The concepts that you've posited are so offensive that I genuinely wish I was stupider so I wouldn't understand them. God. I'm gonna take a sip of water. Okay. But yeah, finally it's Friday tomorrow. I have to think about what I'm gonna do for the next Yakuza thumbnail. I have an idea, but it's gonna take a minute to put that together. but it'll look really funny. So I'm hoping I'm hoping that I find the time to make it happen. I'm also really glad that there are times when I can't thank my past self enough for coming up with the idea of my rival mascot character Tool, because it's just so convenient to have like a second person in on whatever shenanigans I'm doing. That's not Rice Beast or the Sun. Right? Like imagine if you had a daily newspaper comic with only one character. It'd be really difficult to do that, right? That's why Tool is a very useful character for me. And now Tool gets to be Majima in the Yakuza 0 thumbnails, which is gonna be great. It's also really useful because an eye patch looks kind of ridiculous on me. To be fully real. Not for any kind of like fashion reasons, but just for a sensibilities reason. It's like one of those people who like don't have hair anymore, but they want to buy a comb. I guess there's a lot of uses for a comb though. I feel like combs are one of those tools that can be like surprisingly versatile, like towels. Okay, bring this down here. And we can just make another one for the inner bit here. Let me thicken up this line a little bit too. Okay, this one here, this one here, this one here. No, that doesn't work. Hang on. Let's do it like this. Okay, that should be fine. That's a serviceable kind of curve thing. What do you even call this? Like a trapezoidal shape? Trapezoidal feels like the right word to apply. I mean, it's got like two extra little lines, right? It's not a true trapezoid, it's like half of an octagon. Hold on, I just had a thought. Half of an octagon still has 5 sides. Is that true for any other shape? Like, is this half of a hexagon 5 sides? Hang on. 1, 2, 3, 4. No, one half of a hexagon is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines. Okay, no, so it's whatever you had minus 2 lines. So, like, let's say pentagon. You cut that in half. That's 4 lines. Geometry is weird. Or I guess it's not lines so much as it is like corners, right? Vertices. I kind of want to do trigonometry again. I feel like it's been long enough that I'm ready to be hurt by it once more. I think I still have my old high school math textbook kicking around somewhere, and that's going to be good because my university math courses were nothing to write home about compared to my high school math courses. Because to be fair, I didn't major in math or anything. The most complicated things I had to do were like for my finance classes where I had to basically calculate how much interest a given derivative would have. That's that's not as complicated as like trigonometry. Trigonometry is way harder. I don't know. I just feel like doing more problems again, like math problems and such, is just gonna it's just gonna like reduce a little bit of like, I don't know how to put it. I feel like whenever I go for too long without like doing something in a structured academic environment, I feel dumber. Like genuinely, I have like that little Fallout New Vegas pop up that says like college education has worn off. It's a very odd feeling. But yeah, I feel like doing some kind of like education context problem can help alleviate that feeling a little bit. I remember there was one VTuber in Hololive, that Kureiji Oli girl, who did a like a trigonometry, like an algebra stream. That was really funny. She should do one of those again. I haven't watched it, but I feel like it's just like a fun experience. I don't know. Would anybody bother tuning in for like a math exam stream? Like if I put out like a syllabus with like 2 weeks notice, and then like I promise to promise untold riches and glory for whoever scores the highest. Is that something people would be interested in? I feel like that would be a fun thing to do. I feel like I would have a hard time finding volunteers for it, though. Oh gosh, not the testing. It does sound fun, but also math. That's true, actually. Maybe it doesn't have to be like a test. Maybe it can just be like a hand-in worksheet that we can all just kind of supervise each other do. And yeah, maybe it's like less so a test and more like a, yeah, because I feel like test is gonna bring back some unpleasant memories for some people. I remember one time I got so stressed during a math test. But I remember that test was like really hard for a bunch of people. Like genuinely, that test was so bad that one of my friends like genuinely had an anxiety attack during it, and that's when she started going to counseling. Oh, that poor girl. I don't know if that's an appropriate story to share. I'm sorry if it isn't, but Christ, that was just such an awful exam. We had kids in there weeping and shit. Like it was bad. So yeah, maybe it does need to be done live on stream. So maybe it's got to be like some kind of game show style thing where somebody. Okay, here's an idea. Here's a cool compromise, right? Game show style. Whoever rings the buzzer first and answers it gets full points. But if they get it wrong, we kind of all just work it out together, and then whoever like we all get like an equal amount of points. I feel like that's not a bad way to do it. I'll have to let that idea marinate for a little bit. Okay, then over here. Jeopardy style? Yeah, kind of like that. Yeah, that would be a much better idea, because then I feel like if it was just like a stream of like me proctoring like 2 or 3 other people who are taking a math exam, right? That wouldn't have a whole lot of action in between. Okay. And make the ribbon over here. I remember I tuned it like back when I still had Netflix. I don't have Netflix anymore. I canceled my subscription like years and years ago. But I when I still had Netflix, I ended up watching like an episode of Jeopardy, and I was like, "Oh man, this thing kind of rocks." And then I realized it had like 80 seasons or something, and I'm like, "Oh." I got a little bit intimidated. Like, you think One Piece has a lot of episodes? Real Jeopardy has have suffered way worse. I'm not gonna lie. When I first heard about Jeopardy, I thought a lot more leopards would be involved because they sounded so much more alike, and I didn't know what the word Jeopardy meant. Actually, I didn't. I did know what the word Jeopardy meant, but I didn't know. I didn't understand the way it was used in the context of the game show's name. So I was just like, "Why? Is this like a lethal game? Like, why are they in danger? Why is the title so urgent?" Like, Squid Game should have been named Jeopardy, right? Like, I feel like that would have been a much more. Well, I don't know. They did the thing about Squid Game is that, from what I understand, it wasn't actually a game show. It was just like a fucked up gladiatorial entertainment arena for rich people to see poor people suffer. That's what I understood about Squid Game's synopsis, so to speak. I have not seen a single fucking episode of Squid Game, and that's fine by me. I do remember that like sales for like the Squid Game, the like Adidas shoes or whatever from Squid Game shot up like an immense amount after the episodes aired. It was battle royale essentially, but for money. Ah, yeah, okay, yeah, that sounds kind of in line with what I've seen. Yeah, 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 yeah. Okay. It is funny that it has to be specified that this battle royale is for money, as opposed to the OG battle royale, which was the original battle royale also for money? I don't remember the synopsis of that book. I remember it was the basis for the Hunger Games, and I know that one was definitely for survival, but also money. Technically, both, both is good. Actually, both is awful in the context of whatever is happening in the Hunger Games. I hear some prequels got released for that shit. It was just for survival. I see. Man, it's great. Do you ever like think about like a thing, like a story, right? And you see the threads that led from it and to it, it's like seeing like a galaxy full of different things. Like, I was just thinking there for a second, like, okay, so if we didn't have battle royale, we wouldn't have the Hunger Games, and at the same time we also wouldn't have shit like Danganronpa. Like, most death game concepts are owed in some or a great capacity to battle royale. God, there was like I remember hearing about Danganronpa for the first time because of like an AMV that I watched as a teenager, and I'm like, oh wow, this looks the art style of this looks super interesting. Let me check out the anime that it has, because at the time I didn't realize that it was like a visual novel. I didn't know what a visual novel was at that time. The concept of a video game where you didn't hit things with a hammer was mind-boggling to young Pavs. To be fair, I read a lot more back in those days, so I was like, why wouldn't you just read a book then? I did not understand visual novels whatsoever. I understand them now. I am now the visual novel. I am like now a visual novel stronger soldier, given despite the fact that I very rarely read them. The thing is that nowadays I bat for visual novels out of a sense of solidarity. I bat for visual novels out of love of the underdog, out of love of the game, love of the medium. Right? It's kind of like how people can be enthusiastic about like certain like flesh eating bacterium, but not like participate in the hosting of such things. I'm an armchair VN supporter. Let me increase the size of the hat. And also let me decrease the opacity of this part here. Okay, then we'll go like this. Okay, and then we'll add the horn right around here. And we also need to attach a scrap of cloth in there. See, the problem to me with reading visual novels is that unlike most video games, where if I like dedicate a full weekend to it to just knock it out in a couple of sittings, that is not something I can do with like say Umineko. That well, maybe I can. I can definitely do that for some visual novels. That the thing is that all the visual novels that I want to partake of are like 80 hours long for some goddamn reason. Well, no, there is a good reason for them being 80 hours or long. It's because reading is awesome. But at the same time, it's inconvenient. Also, I need to go look up how I did Horatio's eyebrows in other pages real quick. I feel like that's something that I do that's also rather inconsistent. Okay, no, so they are kind of the bone color. I like how so much how he looks in this panel. Like this is just such a friendly expression. The other day I saw a Tumblr post of that Senshi guy from Dungeon Meshi smacking a pair of those sticky notes on his forehead and being like, "All right, no more Mr. Nice Guy." I can't do a Sung Won Cho impression, so it's hard for me to like do a Senshi impression. But I think I could probably try doing that as well. Just smacking a pair of sticky notes onto my forehead. I don't know. It beats my other idea, which is taking a Sharpie and permanently drawing them on there, which would look pretty baller, but I don't know if that qualifies as, I would have. It's very stressful, right? Making sure the Sharpie you buy isn't like permanent. Because I am a bag of rice. My skin don't regenerate like you ear havers. You like, you skin people. I don't get the benefit of like regenerating cells. Yeah, what's that like, by the way? Does it hurt? Does it hurt when your cells regenerate? Anyway, Kfabi aside, no, I could see like a whole bunch of problems of introducing a permanent marker to like a society where like people are made out of bags or whatever. Probably also a society where people are made out of styrofoam. I think Sharpie melts styrofoam because it's so caustic, right? Something melted. I remember something about styrofoam. Like, I remember my parents told me to be very careful when I was drawing with a marker on something. I don't think that Sharpie is ever permanent and can probably just use toothpaste to clean it off. Oh, then I'm safe then. Good, good, good. That's good to know. Hi, Quispy. Yeah, I think at worst, Sharpie is just very annoying to take off. Right? Like, there's a reason why drawing rude things on somebody's face when they're asleep with a Sharpie is like one of those time-honored pranks. Not bad enough that they can't be in. Well, no, they probably can't be in public, depending on like what you put on their faces with Sharpie. But not bad enough that it's like a permanent thing, right? Yeah, how did people? That one prank where like you stick somebody's hand in a bowl of like warm water and they'll pee themselves if they're asleep? Who found out about that? Like, who was like the first mother guy to like figure out like, oh man, like, do you think like when that was discovered, the guy who did it was like, oh man, time for my classic wet hand prank, and this time the target's gonna be asleep, so they'll wake up with a wait, what's that stain on their pants? Wait, no, this is how it was supposed to be. God, I'm sorry, it's just a very funny idea to me that like the concept of like the hand in a bowl of water prank is just an innocent design gone wrong. It's like those tokusatsu scientists that are like, but surely my machine that I've created that can disintegrate people will be used for good. That's something that always cracked me up about like super old tokusatsu shows is that they'll have like they'll pull these random scientists out of fucking nowhere, and the scientists will be like, "Oh, I've created a machine that like breaks your arm in 3 different directions every single time you turn it on," and somebody will be like, "But dude, that sounds evil as fuck." And he's like, "Oh no, no, most assuredly not. I'm going to use it to save the environment." You see, you're only supposed to use it for people who litter. And it'll be some shit like that until like Shocker shows up and it's like, "We're going to use this shit for evil." And he's like, "How could this be?" It's always like this. Weirdly enough, it's like usually the opposite for ordinary technology. Usually something's incredibly fucking evil to use, and then somebody's like, "Wait a minute, we could actually use this for good." But it's frequently enough it's the other it's also the normal way around where like something is created with the desire to help people and it's just perverted. Like the mall, for example. I remember that there was like an article about the guy who like invented the concept of a mall. And the idea was that instead of having it just be like a massive commercial center, it would almost be like an all-in-one living complex. Instead of having to go to like a market like 2 or 3 miles away, you would be able to very close to where you live in like a residential apartment building, just be able to get your groceries by going downstairs. And it would have been great. And then they did malls the way they actually did them, and this guy was like, "Oh, okay, so now malls suck," is what you're saying. They're like, they're like, "Oh man, dude, this idea you had is great. We completely didn't listen to what you said at all, and just made our own thing to make money." And he's like, "That's not the thing that I said at all, though." And they're like, "Yeah, but your idea was awesome, dude." Many such cases, unfortunately. I don't know. I remember there was like a super huge mall in South Korea, right? Shinsegae, I think it was called. And I remember that it was kind of cool looking because it had like a terrace. It had like 10 floors or something. It looked kind of interesting. I don't know. Being too high up in a shopping mall makes me personally a little bit nervous. I do feel like if I'm a little bit too high on a shopping mall and I look over the balcony, I will be very suddenly very afraid of heights. Same thing on like escalators. I don't like. I'm fine with being up high. Like for example, I'm not afraid of airplanes, right? But I don't like the concept of being up high with a way to fall down. If that makes sense. Actually, no, that makes a perfect amount of sense. I don't like being reminded that I could fall down from a great height. Yeah, it's definitely not vertigo, right? Because like that usually has like feelings of nausea or something. Although I do remember that the first time I went to visit my family, the family on my father's side lives in a place that's a little bit of a higher altitude than my mother's side of the family, which is where I grew up. And so these boobs don't look right. And so when I first came to visit them, my ass was immediately struck by the demonic altitude sickness. Yeah, that looks a little better. But yeah, I got hit real hard with the altitude sickness the first time I came to visit them. But the second and third times or so, the subsequent visits were a lot smoother because I was like a little bit older, and so I was a little bit more accustomed to, I didn't get hit with it as hard. Same thing with like my first long haul flight. My first like 8 hour plus flight. I was a wreck. My lips were dry. My ears were pressured. I wanted to cry. I wanted to tear my own hair out. And then like now I've done it so much that I'm literally like an air flight expert. I am the guy who has been on planes so much that it's not even a thing to me anymore. I am very grateful that that is the case. Flying seems to be a very stressful thing for people who didn't do it very often. I have a lot of experiences flying, so I am very lucky in that regard. You know how people joke that like about when some folks clap when the airplane lands. I genuinely thought that was like plane etiquette up until I was like 9, because like I don't know if it's because Ecuador was just like a more hang on. Yeah, I don't know if it's just because like Ecuador was less known for its air flight safety. Wasn't there like a football team that crashed in South America against the mountain and they had to like resort to cannibalism or something? I feel like I remember reading that somewhere. I remember one of my English teachers when I was very young told us that story, and I was like, I live right near there. That's crazy. Hang on, let me turn off the sketch layer for this. Okay, so maybe what I can do is instead of making this extra fold right here, I don't know, it kind of looks... Let's try it like this. All right, we're gonna grab these lines here and just stretch them out a little bit. And then we're gonna try and connect them. And then we're gonna move these guys a little bit to the left. Okay, then we're gonna do the same thing for these ones. Let me move this guy a little bit further up here too. Yeah, no, as I thought, the issue seems to be that the divot here is too great. I need to kind of reduce it somewhat, and then let me retry this line down here first. Let's get the big shapes right, and then we'll worry about the little shapes. Actually, why not just, while I'm at it, why not just cover up this part of the grenade? Let me move around a little here. The good news is I still have the grenades reference in case of any issues in the future. Why is this not looking right? Are the boobs not low enough? Are the... Hang on. Might be onto something here. I'm still remembering Miss Tatsu from Yakuza 0 calling some guy sugar moves. That still cracks me up. Top 10 phrases of all time. Okay. Now we can do the part here. Okay, one here. Remove these. 2. I'm not keeping track of the buttons. That way lies madness, sadness, and treachery. And then we can also kind of like that. Okay. Erase this part here. Okay. Let's bring back the... Maybe I can use a slightly thicker brush for the eyes here. I don't know, something about them doesn't seem friendly enough. Okay, then let me reduce this back to like 10 or 14. Okay, then we can add a little bit more eyebrow game here. Likewise over here, we can make the eyebrows just look... I keep calling them eyebrows. They're technically like... I don't think that's what they are. I don't know. Like some kind of animal expert might be able to more accurately say what these are, but they're not exactly eyebrows. I don't know. They could technically be eyebrows because unlike a lot of hair-related terms, eyebrows is not at all related to like... doesn't have hair in them, right? Like it's not like facial hair. It's not like a like eyelash is also a term that doesn't necessarily imply excuse me, my apologies. It doesn't necessarily imply hair. It's just something that's used to keep things out of hair, out of your eye. It's used to keep things out of your eye. Things that are used to keep things out of your hair, I guess, are called hats. I don't know. Not all hats keep stuff out of your hair. Although it's hard for me to think of a hat that attracts things to your hair. Okay, then put this over here. This shoe is going to go on like this. Now, I'm going to need to be very careful and remember that I need to like move the house they burst out of, the tent that they burst out of, one to the right rather, to comply with the continuity changes we made last time. Also, I'm going to retry this leg here in just a minute. Let me twist this one out. I fear I may have made his shorts a little bit too tiny in this frame, but it is what it is. Okay, then over here. I'm gonna stretch my wrists for just a second. Cripes, it's almost already time. Oh man. Well, we've made a lot of progress with this second panel, so I'm actually quite pleased with what we've accomplished so far. The time lapse, which I am checking right now, I do have turned on. I do in fact have the time lapse turned on. Bless the heavens. Praises to the heavens, rather. I don't know. Bless the heavens feels like it's a little bit redundant, right? Like as a declaration of happiness. I mean, it couldn't hurt to bless the heavens. I don't know. It just feels like polishing something a little that's already been shined. It's like when you do you know like have you ever had an experience where you have a friend who really likes a certain thing and you get them something that they think they'll like and they're like, "Oh wow, I love it." And then, they kind of like scoot over to the side and you accidentally see that they have like five other five other versions and copies of the things that you try to give them. That's actually a really funny experience. I don't think that's happened to me, but I do reckon that that can happen, where you try to give somebody something and they already have it for some reason, or rather, whatever you can give them is something that's like that they probably already have because it's not that rare. I don't know. In those kinds of situations, it really is the thought of the gift that counts because if the person in question doesn't know enough about your hobby to like give you something that you don't have, but they do still care enough about you to try and give you something. I think that's definitely a situation where you feel happy to just like that they're just like trying to engage with you. I feel. Okay, that doesn't feel like how a boot would work. Maybe I can just kind of retry to doing the boot like this. Okay, then put this one here. Actually, I feel like the boot would probably be a little bit flatter, like so. Do I have a hawk's hand anywhere? I think it's just buried beneath just the mountain of dinosaur man that she's carrying right here. Good luck with the comic. Thanks, Adept. I need to draw just a couple more things for the jetpack, and the foreground people of this panel will be finished. We shall persevere. Okay, also, I think I do need to draw more of Hawk, but I'll figure that out as I go along. Is this angle for the rocket thrusters entirely appropriate? Let's make the wing a little bit thicker, if that's the case. I feel like that could help a little bit with communicating the placement of the wing. It should be lower too, come to think of it. I can kind of just move it somewhere over to the side. Hmm. If that's the case, I can move the wing up just a tiny bit. Yeah, there we go. Now Hawk's got a little bit more shoulder space. Let me turn off the sketch layer just so I can kind of figure out what needs to go where. This is going to still be a ratio, this line right here. Then Hawk's arm can be over here. But that's a little bit too high. She's holding way too much tension in her shoulders this way. And also, it would cut over the hand here. I need to bear that in mind as well. Okay. This line can just go, I think. We don't need to worry about it too much. Okay, then move this part here. Oh, the straps for the jetpack go here. The jetpack itself can be right here. Just a little smidgen. And I feel like I made her shoulder a little bit too wide. I just need to... It can still be wide, but it just needs to be a little more realistically wide. Okay, that's good. We have the foreground for this panel. We can probably call it there for tonight. I'm not going to lie. I think we've done some good work here. Yeah, I think I'm gonna end things here for tonight. Or actually, let's see who's streaming. You know what? What the hell? It's a Thursday night. Who isn't streaming at a time like this? Oh, Acreus is playing Alan Wake 2, so we can go say hi over there. Alan Wake 2, I think, is a horror game, so that might not be the most relaxing thing to go into, but you know what? That's life sometimes. I will be back on Saturday to play some Yakuza. Thank you all for coming by, and I will see you all later. Bye.